All right, so I asked you guys to send me in some clips so I can VOD review them for free. I think this is pretty fun, and it's also a good way to help people out. So we're just going to go into this pretty dry, actually. First clip is VR, 2 average clips from aim training and then in-game, not highlights exactly. All right, so let's see this. So you see he has good reactive, and the way that you see he has good reactive, but he sometimes messes up, is it sort of follows him as the bot changes directions. His mouse does so in a smooth motion. So when you see he's lagging behind like this, wait, like that was good reactive. And this is bad reactive because you can see where his mouse is and see where the enemy is. So he's reacting slowly. So he has both good reactive and a little bit of bad reactive. But what we can tell from this short clip, you would really benefit from doing something like SYA. And I know Tappy Strafes is basically a gauntlet scenario, which gives you a lot of different bots. What I think you should do based on this clip alone, which is a very small info, is number 1, play SYA. And number 2, play more fast strafe scenarios. The issue that you're having isn't during the easy part, which when the bot is just moving in a straight line. The issue you're having is when the guy switches directions and you struggle doing so smoothly, basically. All right, so my tip for you VR, play SYA, focus on fast strafes, and focus in on honing in a little bit of that reactivity. And the number 1 thing is to mix up easy and hard scenarios for you so you can sort of up your difficulty and up your skill ceiling, which is what you need, because you just need that little bit edge, that little bit deep. Because you sort of just need to brute force it a little bit by playing hard scenarios, but also benefiting from the easy scenarios at the same time. Try to focus on playing scenarios that are crazy hard together with scenarios that are like normal hard for you. This way we're sort of upping our standard and bringing our standard to a higher place. And I only really recommend this for intermediate players, which it looks like your aim is, but I know you've gotten a lot better in your reactive already. Okay, well, the thing about this is there's 2 things I spotted in this. Number 1 is just a whiff, and people whiff all the time. Like I whiff, you whiff, it's normal, even the best aimers. However, take a look at his movement, what he does here. He's shooting and he's just standing still. When you're standing still, it's not going to give you that reset time. So you're basically just spamming. You're treating this gun as a full auto weapon and you're just clicking mouse 1 and not moving at all. What I would recommend you to do, shoot 1 bullet, move. Shoot 1 bullet, move. And this is where a lot of people mess up because they move only if they see that they have missed or hit the shot. You should move regardless if you hit or miss the shot. Shoot, move. Shoot, move. Hit or miss, it doesn't matter. From an aim training standpoint, you could argue that this is bad first shot accuracy. You could argue that this is bad micro adjustments. You can argue that you have bad speed as well. You know, all of these things are relevant, but of course, it's a whiff. And that's very important to like remember here. But yeah, if I had to say one thing for you purely on an aim training scale, it would definitely be like more static and more target switching. But you know, this was a whiff as well. Suka says, he was very unprepared. I want to play an extremely aggressive Widow, have a headshot exposed 100%. Before I even see this clip, something that's really stands out if you want to be a good Widow main is actually precision tracking. Something like PGTI, Smooth Sphere, Control Sphere, shit like that, Smooth Bot. So let's take a look at his game. So you see how you're sort of forced to track a little bit for clicking in Widow. So when you're playing dynamic, I want you to play scenarios that are pretty small and that force you to track a little bit before you shoot. That's going to build up a little bit more consistency with that. And like number 2 is that you're lacking a lot of speed. I mean, you're in no danger whatsoever here and you still like struggle a little bit to track him fastly. Like you're not on target pretty fast. So again, target switching would be really good because it just builds up that natural speed. You see it there? You see it right there? Let's take a look at this clip. Maybe we can look at it in slow motion. This is why I say tell people to play pokeball a lot. Look at how he does this flick. Not this one. Look at how he does this flick. Flick once, flick twice, flick 3 times and miss. So you are micro-adjusting, you're just micro-adjusting poorly, and you're not on target cleanly. And what are some ways we work this? Wide wall static and pokeball. So number one would be pokeball to get like cleaner lines. That way you would be closer to the target when you flick and don't have to micro adjust that many times. And then wide ball for the times you actually have to micro adjust. Of course, cluster scenarios and speed clicking and stuff like that is all relevant here. But you know, the way that you're playing this is very interesting because you're like moving a little bit slow and then you're speeding up at the end because you're like realized you don't have that much time. So you're like slowly and then fast, slow and then fast, slow and then fast, which is a little bit interesting. I personally wouldn't recommend reflex scenarios for you. I think reflex scenarios are good, but you have to have some sort of better speed management. So consistently draw in one clean line and one clean speed is the number one key here. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend reflex scenarios for you. And if you're going to play them, play some that aren't pure reflexy. Like this one is pure like reaction heavy. Play something that gives you slightly more time so you can sort of get used to it. All right, let's move on to police. Any tips on what I can do better? My aim is to be feeling shaky and also efficient. If you guys can recommend scenarios, can work on it. That'd be great. All right, so he's playing a target switching scenario here. So you have clean lines. You're landing kind of close to the target. The thing about that is you probably don't have as clean lines as I'm saying because you're not pushing speed at all. So when you start pushing speed a lot more, that's when your clean lines sort of get exposed for not being super clean, which is what I see. So you're super focused on accuracy, and the simple answer is just to move your hand faster, right? But what you're doing here is playing a static scenario is also a good option, but you know, the most basic answer I can give you is to play larger bots. Play stuff that's called novice and easy because those move a lot slower and sometimes have less health. So something like low TTK would also work. Yeah. Generally, speed is about being comfortable with speed. It's not that it's like a skill, it's more that it's a comfort. And you're just not comfortable with it, so you flick to your comfort level. You sort of have to go outside of your comfort level when chasing speed just a little bit. So if you want recommendations for actual scenarios, I can give you Kovac scenarios because I'm not super comfortable with AimLabs. Laya TS, Vox TS low TTK, play Dev TS static, and I would also recommend doing stuff like Grid Shot 116 TE, like very larger stuff. I know it's pretty common sense, but sometimes you need to play the easier stuff so you can play the harder stuff. You know what I mean? Let's see Precise Orb VOD by OK. So Precise Orb is a scenario that lacks a lot of gluing to your target. It sort of works that, you know, if you see a guy's head, you want to be able to glue to his head. That's sort of what it works and not this straight bouncing motion. So people always say, oh, this isn't realistic. You know, nobody would jump like this in my game. But, you know, the point is to glue your crosshair to the target and not the specific motion that the bot is doing. I would say this is still too hard for you. Like that would be my number one complaint because you're sort of losing track of it all the time. And when it's arcing, like now you have trouble. So this is easy. Now you have trouble, which is sort of the hard part. So you have trouble at the hard part, which tells me it's too easy for you. I would definitely do SYA. 100% do SYA for you. God, tier tracking. Okay, the Mad Adam. Let's see. What is this? Start clicking. So you're doing a nice job of tracking a little bit before you're clicking. Sometimes you're spamming a little bit. There's two ways really to play dynamic. Either you play it the spammy way, which is sort of the MBM way as they call it, which is sort of just flicking and spamming as much as you can, which is called like realistic, whatever. Or you can do it like to practice incorporating your tracking in your flicking, which is what I like to do, which is track a little bit and then click, which you're doing well. You're just not doing consistently. And that tells me that this is way too hard for you because you're sort of struggling to catch up. Like your tracking isn't at that point yet where this is comfortable. So I would play this, but the size is fine, but the speed is it's a little bit too much for you, I think. So I would slow these down a little bit. I don't know if AimLabs has a timescale feature, but I would slow these down a little bit or play slightly easier version. Well, another thing I noticed is that you're often confused when you're on target or not. So you're sort of clicking around the bot, right? And you're not always clicking on the bot, which is strange because these are rather larger bots. And what you can do if you play, if you struggle with the precision part, as they call it, is actually to scale down the bot and play a slower version. So this is start clicking 200%. What I would do is like play start clicking like 75%, but scale down the size of the bot. That way you work the precision and you work the sort of the habit of flicking a little bit and tracking, so that builds up the consistency. So that's sort of the SYA method as well, which is ultimately like one of the best ways to aim chain I've found. All right, we're watching Gabby. Bad at fast reactive. By the way, this test is for we'll take close. We'll take gold and I'm close. All right. All right, you're definitely not like, forget about your rank. This is just too hard for you. I can see that instantly. Because what you're doing is like, you're just hoping the bot sort of falls into the pattern of your mouse. You're doing the same pattern all the time and hoping that the bot will fall into it. So it's sort of like predicting. And this is just way too hard for you. Like you have 11% accuracy. That should probably tell you something. You should aim for like in reactive, you should aim for like, if you're doing a normal scenario, aim for like 50, 60% accuracy. And if you're doing SYA, you should aim for like 65 to 80% accuracy. I would definitely recommend SYA and just generally slowing down your scenarios a lot more. Like scale back. No offense, but most of you guys aren't as good as you think you are. Let's watch Sinid, which I know is a good aimer. So you can see that he has good raw reactionary ability, because as soon as the bot changes direction, he does so very quickly, but he doesn't do so smoothly, which is a difference between like a good reactive tracker and a great one. The thing about playing reactive bots is that you usually don't want to be able to play the precise versions, because they're often too hard for most people. But I know Sinid is a good aimer, so I would again recommend the SYA method for Sinid, but I would also recommend playing a little bit larger scenarios and sort of getting used to that raw reactive feature. Another way, since I've given this tip a lot to play easier scenarios, is actually to go the exact opposite approach and play a lot harder scenarios. So because you mentioned that you struggle reacting a little bit smoothly, which is a very, very common thing, if you take the approach that I'm going to play super hard scenarios, which force you to react all the time, that would in theory practice your raw reactive ability. So I would do a good mix of practicing like super easy scenarios with super hard scenarios. And that way you sort of get a blend and a good, like the best of both worlds type of situation. Because you're reacting fast, right? But you're not always reacting accurately either. So now that I watch it a little bit more, I can see that you're sort of flicking a little bit, but you struggle tracking afterwards. So you flick and then you struggle tracking a little bit afterwards, and then it's changing direction already. So that means it's slightly too hard for you. But number one is that you might actually be lacking a little bit of smoothness. So generally what I would try out, like I would experiment with this, and 3 things I can give you. Number 1, try SYA. Number 2, try very hard scenarios that force you to react all the time. And number 3 is actually to play super easy, smooth scenarios. So play something like thin aiming long, centering, thin gauntlet, stuff like that. That's going to get you in the better habit of like the raw smoothness, or tracking after flicking as they call it. And now we want to watch Ghosty. Very good speed right off the bat. You have fast micro adjustments. You're sort of shaking a little bit. Often when you see people shake like this at the end of the flicks, they're pushing their speed a little bit too much. However, I understand we want to get for scores, so fully understandable. The main thing I see that's holding you back is actually your lines aren't super clean. So if you think, I don't know if you guys can see my mouse, but if you think I flick and then have to adjust every single time, that's going to add to the length it takes to the target, and it's going to slow me down basically. So what you need to do is play a lot of pokeball. I would recommend playing 1 wall 4 targets pokeball and then playing this one. Because your speed is obviously good. Like everybody can see that your speed is on point, but you're often clicking like around the target at times. So let's say you specifically want to get better at this scenario. This is what I would do. Play a pokeball version that's smaller because you're lacking precision. If you would lack speed, I would have given you a larger one. But since you're lacking precision a little bit, play 1 wall 4 targets extra small pokeball. Then I would play 1 wall 4 targets the TE version, which is the large clicking version, to get you a little bit more comfortable with that speed, because you're doing it fast, you're just not a little bit comfortable with it, which was why you're shaking a little bit. And then I would actually play one ball, 4 targets. So again, I would sort of condition my static in that way. So my main tips for you would be to condition it a little bit with smaller pokeball, play a little bit larger bots, and then play your actual scenario. We have VR again here with the smooth bot scenario. It's kind of hard to see your crosshair, which is like the main point. You have kind of high accuracy right now, I'm seeing. The reason we want to be able to see the crosshair is because when you VOD review, you want to stare at the crosshair to see all the micro adjustments that you make, all the micro mistakes that you make, sorry. The one thing I can see just from your screen and not from your crosshair is that you're slightly shaking inside of the bot. Either that means two things. Either your mouse is too small for you, the scenario is too hard for you, which it isn't, or you just lack overall smoothness ability, which I don't think is either way either. I would look into, if your hand size is larger, your mouse might be too small for you, but that wouldn't be the first thing we do. If I was you, before this, I would play like a centering 1 easy version, like the easiest type of smoothness you can ever imagine, and to sort of smooth out your aim. You can also try playing regen before playing this. And lastly, which is super underrated, is playing more speed matching. So play something like Swave Track before playing this, which sort of forces you to move your hand faster. And the reason we do that is because a lot of times when we shake, it's a lack of skill. And that lack of skill is often from a lack of matching the bot's speed. So we sort of shake and hope we hit something, which you are doing, but you're doing inside of the bot. So you're still hitting, which is a good sign. All right, let's watch this. CSGO warm-up. Get some volume on this. Right. Similar to the other guy, you want to be moving. Don't take tapping duels when you're standing still. If you're standing still, spray. If you're moving, tap. Too slow. See how long it took you for that? Like your overall reaction time isn't that high. Your crosser was sort of already on him. That was a clean flick, but it wasn't on the head. You didn't adjust to the head there. Okay, so after watching your VODs a little bit, there's two things that I can really take out. Like, no offense, this is your overall aim. Like, your overall aim lacks skill. That is number one. If you go to the details of what's lacking, it's number one, visual reaction time. You're not fast enough. The way we work that is to target switching and actually reactive tracking. Play my SYA reactive playlist. And then play some form of target switching as well. And spam target switching. Don't just play like 1 or 2. Number 3 would actually be getting cleaner lines with Pokeball, because a lot of times you're flicking, but you're not flicking accurately. You're missing. And number 3, and lastly, I would want to touch on the static part, is you need to play a lot more static. I know this sort of says like every single thing in the world. That's because you need it. You need the overall fundamentals. So for you, I'd recommend a fundamental playlist for sure. One that focuses on static, Pokeball, target switching, and reactive tracking. And my reasoning again is because you're often lacking clean lines. You're flicking, but you're hitting sort of near the target instead of hitting them on the head. And sometimes you take way too long to actually react to the enemy at all. So you just stare at them with your crosshair instead of like adjusting, clicking, shooting, moving, whatever. And that's why I suggest doing speed target switching. Because look at your crosshair there. Look at where you flick and you land up like very close to the head and not on the head. And you just end up shooting wherever you land instead of adjusting for the head. And when we see that, the lack of adjusting, as I call it, it's mainly a target switching issue. Because it's mainly like you're flicking and not adjusting. And the reason I mentioned static is because a lot of the times when you're shooting, look at this kill. You're shooting sort of near or around the target rather than on the target. You're not adjusting at all. And then another Pokeball example, look at this. You're flicking, but again, you're not adjusting. You're shooting the head. You're shooting the body. Number one, you lack overall aim. That's just the number one thing, and just means that you need to work on the fundamentals. Number two, you actually lack a lot of speed and visual reaction time. The way we work on this is through target switching and reactivity tracking. Number three is that you lack clean lines. You're often flicking to the body and not to the head. Number four is that you probably need to work more static because you lack overall mouse control. So you see that an example that you need more pokeball, you can see here. Again, look at where you end up landing. So you flick to the guy, and that was a pretty accurate flick, but you land on the body, and instead of adjusting, you just shoot. And that is a lack of speed. All the time when you're not adjusting, it is a lack of speed. How do we fix speed? Target switching and easier target switching. That forces us to flick all the time. Look at that again. You sort of take such a long time to even get on the target or to even shoot. All right, so switching to Cruella's Polarized Hellvod. Let's take a look at this. You have good but bad reactive at the same time. Like, look at often where your crosshair is. The thing about scenarios like this that are like super hard is that they have a way of like fooling you, because you hit the easiest part of the bot and then you miss the hardest part of the bot. So in your mind, you're like, I'm hitting, but you're actually missing when it matters. And that's really crucial to remember. So always look when you miss and not when you hit. And you see that when the bot, let's go back for that. When the bot does these like crazy, like double, like react, that sort of chaos element that I talk about a lot, it shows me that you would benefit a lot from scenarios that don't have a pattern. So this bot has a pattern. It moves left and then it moves left, right, and moves left, right. So it does the same thing over and over again. You want to find a scenario that never does the same thing, or always switches it up and breaks the pattern. So the reason why something like Close Fast Strafes is an example why it's a good scenario is because it does a pattern and then it breaks very frequently. This doesn't break the pattern frequently enough. So again, you're sort of being a little bit fooled by that fact that you're hitting doing the easy part. I wouldn't say that this is too hard for you though. I think this is a good level of doing this sort of stuff, and would like to sign up for my in coaching. Do be sure to head over to the Discord. Much love. Like you're a fundamental player, but at an advanced level, I would say, and sort of just spam and get like the nitty gritty raw reactive shit out of the way. So yeah, that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I also switched up the mic since the other stuff was recorded before. But yeah,